All right. Let's make sure everybody can see what's going on. And let me mute that. All right, so here we go. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Football Forecast episode number 14. It is October 22nd, 2019, 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, and we're back, episode number 14. So, so this week in football, a lot happened. A lot happened today, actually, in the NFL. I guess right now we'll just go ahead and clear that out. Just talk about what happened there. Some pretty crazy stuff today. Number one is that the two undefeated teams have made a trade, a pretty big wide receiver trade today. And so for the Patriots, it was for Mohamed Sanu. So the Patriots traded for Mohamed Sanu from Atlanta for a second-round pick, giving Atlanta a second-round pick. So, in that kind of trade, when you see Mohamed Sanu, a player like Mohamed Sanu, go to the Patriots for a second-round pick, that's a pretty crazy trade, especially, right before the trade deadline. Mohamed Sanu is somebody that's really loved in Atlanta, and I can say that as somebody that is around a lot of Atlanta fans. He's very loved in Atlanta, and he loves the Atlanta culture as well. If you keep up with the NFL, he's a very overlooked player. But if you keep up with the NFL, a lot of people with that stature would know who he is and what he's about. But really, he's a great, very reliable wide receiver. He's got some of the best hands in the league, but also he's one of the best trick play players that are available on the market right now, or that are available in the NFL. The guy has done so many trick plays for Atlanta and even the Bengals. As a QB, throwing the ball, he's perfect. I think it's 7 out of 7. I think he has a 100% QB rating or passer rating. So I mean that's really good for the amount of passes that he's thrown. And now he's gone from Atlanta. Now he's on the Patriots. He's there with Brady. So it just begs the question, are the Patriots unstoppable this year? They're adding that kind of firepower to their offense, and they have one of the best defenses in NFL history already, ranking among the top 10 right now. So that's a pretty crazy trade. I think when everybody saw that today, they kind of said, "Oh God, the Pats are here to do it again. They're here to win the Super Bowl again." And they, with that kind of trade, they mean business. Like I think that goes without saying. I don't know if you want to talk about the other trade, but
yeah, as far as the other trade, it looks like that the 49ers have made a trade with the Broncos. 49ers getting wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders, and I forget what was it they gave up.
It's so hard to find now because when everybody sees the trade, the one thing they talk about is, Emmanuel Sanders, just straight up just heading down to California now. So, but if you do look at the trade, it's a 5th-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's Emmanuel Sanders and a 5th-round pick to the 49ers for 3rd and 4th-round picks from the Broncos. So,
yeah.
That is, that's reasonable. So I think Mohamed Sanu is a little bit more reliable of a wide receiver than Emmanuel Sanders is. Overall, I think he has better hands. I think he has more value as a trick play type of player, and a bigger body type of player as well. But I think that the 49ers, being undefeated, and need some offensive firepower, because if there's one place where they're lacking, it's that offensive firepower, that deep downhill stretch, and making those right reads by, Jimmy G, and just making those reads over the middle and having those things open for you and having shots open downfield that you can take, and they don't really have any. I think that maybe this could open that window up for them a little bit. Emmanuel Sanders is somebody that's had pretty good stats overall. In 2018, He had 868 yards with 12.2 yards per reception. He also had 4 touchdowns. That was a really good year for him. He's been in the league since 2010, so it's somebody that's pretty reliable. They're going to be set in San Francisco with Emmanuel Sanders. That's going to just aid to their Super Bowl campaign. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a good trade. I think they probably got something good out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it really works out well for the 49ers because even though they're undefeated, that's been largely because of their defense that has played so well. Really outside of their tight end George Kittle, they don't really have any consistent pass catchers. A lot of their offense has either been from running the ball or from Jimmy G throwing the ball to Kittle and throwing a lot to the running backs out of the backfield. In fact, if you look at the stats, if looking at the receivers, you look at their average yards per catch, targets per game, receiving yards per game. In all those categories, they're either last or next to last in the league. So they definitely need somebody that can be a consistent pass catcher and somebody that can stretch the field for their offense. So I think that's a really good trade for them. Considering they don't really have to give up a fourth and a fifth rounder, I think they came out pretty well with that.
I think so too. Somebody that's always been fairly consistent wide receiver by looking at his stats. Pretty similar stats year round or season round, I should say. And in the chat we have people conversing in the chat right now, and my boy Ryan says that he's Sanu's more healthy than Emmanuel Sanders, so maybe that was a better trade. He's hardly ever injured. He has incredible size for run blocks. Like I said earlier, bigger guy, and at the same time, Emmanuel Sanders is a good component to Dante Pettis and Kendrick Bourne and Marquise Goodwin. So that's a good point. That's actually a very good point. I think, like I said, it just opens up more firepower downfield. It increases the amount of lanes that you have if you're Jimmy G. If you're looking down a field in first person and you see all these lanes that you have, when you're playing the guys that they've played, those lanes are kind of closed up. And I think for Jimmy G, it would help him out a lot with those lanes just more open, having just another slot guy or just another guy that can go over the middle and grab some balls, create you some out routes, and just overall, it just is a new piece of oil for your machine. It's a new can of oil for your machine. It just helps you run smoother when you have a guy like that. That's exactly what Sanu is going to do in New England as well. I think that's what they wanted out of AB. Even though AB is, a premier wide receiver, he was going to, make an offense. I think that's what they were looking for instead of somebody that's going to be targeted all the time. I think Sanu's just definitely going to be that guy that is not a tight end, but he's still a safety valve. He's still somebody that they can look for and create plays when he needs to. So both of those, great trades. As a Falcons fan, as an Atlanta connoisseur, seeing Mohamed Sanu go is actually pretty sad. He's somebody in Atlanta that everybody likes. Everybody likes watching. He's a great player to watch. Like I said, with those trick plays and things like that. I still remember a play he used against the Buccaneers in 2017 when he was at quarterback, Matt Ryan was at wide receiver, and he threw a huge bomb to Julio in the end zone and caught it, with his fingertips in the end zone, and that was one of my favorites, probably my favorite Sanu memory. So he's going to do great over in New England. Everybody wishes him the best. He's probably going to get a ring too.
He will, and also it benefits the Patriots because they're getting a guy who is a bit underrated, but is a very good, consistent receiver, very dependable. And apparently this is a guy that Belichick has eyed on for quite a while. Apparently the Patriots really wanted him when he was available on the free agent market back in 2016. Signed with the Falcons. With the with the AB situation, with some injuries they've had with some of their other receivers, and so forth, this is something that should really help them. I'm sure Brady is probably excited about this.
I would assume so. I would say he's probably more excited than he was when they got Antonio Brown. I mean what's going through his head when they trade for somebody like that or sign somebody like that is this guy's gonna ruin our team. He's gonna be somebody that's gonna break our chemistry up, which is a reasonable assumption. But Mohamed Sanu is gonna do the opposite of that. He's an absolute leader, so I'm sure he's very happy about that, like you said. And yeah, they're just gonna roll now. I mean, they have no doubt. I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to the AFC Championship this year. The question is, who has a chance to beat him, and right now it's not looking like anybody. So. I expect Mohamed Sanu to get close to winning a ring this year. Probably, I would say like a 60% chance at this point. So, yeah, things are not looking good for the rest of the AFC right now. As for the NFC, though, you still got the Saints that are probably the most dominant besides the 49ers.
The Saints are looking good. The Packers and the Vikings are both looking really good right now. They both continue to get better and better every week. It's kind of funny they're both actually play in the same division, but yeah, both those teams are, along with the Saints. Those two teams in the Saints and 49ers right now look like the top four teams in the NFC. You got some other teams that could be there but aren't playing as good right now. The Cowboys finally got a win. They ended a 3-game losing streak. Remains to be seen how they're going to play when it gets to the second half of the season. They've been really up and down. You got them. Of course, the Bears are 3-3 right now, but they got the defense and the talent to turn that around. Of course, the drawback to that is they play in what is probably the toughest division in the NFL right now. You got some other, really the NFC overall is just a stronger conference right now than the AFC is. Seems like you got a lot of your stronger teams in the NFC, and we haven't even talked about the Seahawks, which are 5-2. You got the Rams sitting at 4-3. The Panthers have won 4 in a row. They're 4-2 right now. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like right now the NFC is shaping up to be the stronger conference. Because if you look in AFC, now you got the Patriots doing well at 7-0. The Bills are 5-1. People aren't really talking a lot about them, but they've played pretty well overall. The Ravens are 5-2. Of course, you got the Chiefs at 5-2, but of course they're without Mahomes, so you don't know how long he's going to be gone and how badly that's going to affect them. Outside of that, you just don't really have a lot of teams that are being talked about a lot. You got a couple of teams in that league that have winning records. You have the Colts at 4-2, the Texans 4-3. Those teams are playing better now than they did at the beginning of the season. But when you look at the top teams in that conference, I don't think anybody really looks at them. I think people mostly focus on the Patriots and the Chiefs, and then you have, I think people look at the Ravens a little bit. They're coming on pretty good, but other than that, you've got a lot of mediocre and lower level teams in that conference.
It just average teams overall. Yeah, I mean, the NFC is definitely the stronger conference, and there's a lot of teams that could compete. But one team in the NFC that is making some buzz right now, before the trade deadline, is the Detroit Lions. So right now, the Lions are actually rumored to be in talks with the Dolphins for a trade, including Kenyon Drake. So seeing this earlier today, I thought this was awesome. I thought this was a great option for Kenyon Drake to have. He's going. Kerryon Johnson's going on IR. He's on injury reserve now. So with the Lions, not having a rushing attack, Kenyon Drake could be a perfect addition to that, especially when you have somebody like Matt Stafford that wants to throw the ball in the backfield. tosses and things like that, and play off tackle, and kind of like an Alvin Kamara type of thing, in swing routes, and somebody that can catch balls and things like that. We talked a lot about Kenyon Drake in the first couple episodes of Football Forecast, just because we thought he was going to be a big player for the Dolphins this year. Turns out, that's not the case, because these guys don't even want to win, but I think Kenyon Drake wants to win, and I think, on the Lions, that's a perfect place to do that. If we look at Kenyon Drake's stats overall, he doesn't have the most perfect stats, right? He's a little bit overlooked as a player. In 2018, he had 477 yards rushing, 9.0 or receiving, 9.0 yards per reception. That's pretty good for a running back, for somebody that is in the depth chart as a running back. So receiving yards, having that many is actually really good. In that same year, he had 535 yards rushing with 120 rush attempts. So also 4 touchdowns. I mean, when you add that together, I mean, that's really good. That's a back that can secure you. And when you compare that to the rushing attack now for the Detroit Lions, we see, against the Vikings, they had, 81 rush yards. Against, the Packers, they had 56. Against the Chiefs, they had a good bit in 186. They had a good game there, but then it was 86 against the Eagles and 94 against the Chargers in week 2, and then 116 against the Cardinals in week 1. So they haven't had a great rushing attack. They've had a little bit mediocre, below average rushing attack for the kind of O-line and receivers that they have that aren't over the top. I think Kenyon Drake is a perfect addition, especially for a team that doesn't have any great wide receivers at this point.
Yeah, if they can add him, that would be a big help to their offense. And the Lions are at a point, if they're going to do something, they need to do something now if they want to try to be contenders. The problem with them right now, they're on a 3-game losing streak. They were 2-0-1 after the 3 weeks. Now they're 2-3-1. If you look at their upcoming schedule here, they've got the Giants coming up here this coming week. That's a winnable game for them. And they're at the Raiders. But then after that, they've got a couple of easy, I would say, very winnable games on the schedule, but they got a lot of tough games left. I mean, they still got to play the Bears twice. They still got to play the Vikings again. They got to play the Packers again. They got a game at Denver late in the year. They got to play the Cowboys at home. They got a game at the Redskins, which looks like it should be a winnable game for them, and and they got the game against the Giants, which I would think they have a good chance there. But if they're going to try to make anything of the season, whatever moves they're going to make, whether it be Kenyon Drake, defensive help wouldn't be a bad idea either, because considering how they performed this past Sunday against the Vikings. But they're going to do anything they need to do it now while they still have a fighting chance, because if they go ahead and drop a couple more games here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, at that point it may be too late for them to try to do anything, because they still have several tough games on their schedule.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree also with the fact that this offense is lacking. I look at it and I see a hole missing. And it's a wide receiver help, right? And there's a couple ways you can fill that. It's not like you have to go out and get, Emmanuel Sanders or Mohamed Sanu like these two teams did earlier. You can get a running back that can catch you out of the backfield. And Kenyon Drake is exactly that, probably the best at it in the league, in my opinion. I think Alvin Kamara can do the same exact thing. I think Kenyon Drake he's smaller, he's shiftier than Alvin Kamara is. So when you put him out in the backfield all the time, and when you make him run routes all the time, he can do it. I just showed you his receiving and rushing yards. I mean, it's literally neck and neck. He is the perfect, option. He's viable for this offense, and they need to go for it. So that is rumored, and I would honestly not be surprised if it happens while we're talking, like, while we're on the podcast. It probably will happen in the next like 40 minutes because it's all over Twitter right now. Everybody's spreading rumors that it might be a fifth for Kenyon Drake, which is not anything. If you're gonna snub Kenyon Drake, it's gonna be for a fifth. I mean that's really good.
Yeah, and I would think for a team like the Dolphins who have really underutilized Kenyon Drake, you would think they'd be open to getting a fifth round pick. You think that would be something they would look upon favorably.
Definitely. I mean, that if I was the Lions, that's a huge steal, and that could be somebody that could help you make it into the playoffs. I mean, that is a playoff-changing player. And also keep in mind that the Lions right now have the fourth highest run blocking grade in the NFL. So it's kind of just setting up for Kenyon Drake to do that, and that's also the 11th highest run blocking grade in 2018. So compared to last year, they've been building up to have a run game like this. That's what they wanted to do with Kerryon Johnson, who is a great pickup from being absolutely ran into the ground at Auburn when he was there. An absolute amazing pickup. But now since he's on IR, they have to get somebody like Kenyon Drake in there to kind of fill that spot. And also comparing to that, in kind of the similar situation, so the Jets, right? The New York Jets, we watched them the other day last night, go head-to-head with the Patriots, and Tom Brady did Tom Brady things again. I have a question from a viewer that's watching right now. He's currently wondering if the Jets O-line was good, Le'Veon's talent wouldn't be going to waste. He's wondering, is Le'Veon's talent absolutely just going to waste right now because of their O-line? Is there any chance that they can make any kind of run with Le'Veon and he can be beneficial?
Well, I think they can, because I think the Jets have gotten the toughest part of their schedule behind them. And I think we touched on this last week.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, because they've got a lot of winnable games on their schedule coming up, and it's got to be one of the easiest, if not the easiest schedule of any of the teams in the league that they have remaining. Because you look up this coming Sunday, they've got to play a game at Jacksonville, which is not going to be easy. That'll be a bit of a tough game. But then after that, you're at Miami. You got the Giants at home. You're at the Redskins. Got the Raiders at home. At the Bengals. I mean, you got, Dolphins are winless. The Redskins have won just one game. The Bengals are winless. And they got another game against the Dolphins. Of course, again, are winless. And then, you got the Ravens, Steelers. You got at the Bills. So some tough games to end the season. But here in the next few weeks, I mean, they've got.
I only see 5 games.
4 out of the next 5 weeks, they've got very, very winnable games on their schedule.
And I only see 5 games that are contests throughout the whole season for them so far, or for the rest of the season. So,
yeah. So I mean, they're sitting at 1-5 right now. But if you look at them 5 weeks from now, you might be looking at a team that might be, say, maybe 5-6. They might be right there in a position where they might be able to be in a battle for a wild card spot, perhaps. And they are playing in what looks like the weaker conference in the NFL. So, lucky for them, it's not the NFC, which would be considerably tougher. But right now, I mean, it's way too early really to be looking at playoffs. But if you were to do that, right now you look at New England, you look at Buffalo, you look at Baltimore, and probably the Chiefs as teams that are pretty good bet to end up being in the playoffs. And other than that, right now you just got a lot of teams that are sitting at 3-3, 3-4, 2-5. A lot of teams with 500 or below records in that conference. So I mean, the Jets have a chance to really make a move here and position themselves where maybe going into late November, December, if they can get better, maybe they got a chance to fight for a wild card spot, because you may end up having a team or maybe even two teams in that conference that might end up finishing with 8-8 records and get a wild card spot, perhaps.
And that team, I mean, the Jets are viable to do that. If there's any team right now that's going to take almost 0 wins and come back and make it into the playoffs somehow, it's them. I mean, they have a young defense, an explosive defense. You got guys like Quentin Williams, in the middle interior. Haven't done much yet, but somebody that has potential that can grow throughout the season. And next week could have a huge game or whatever. But he's a big guy. He's a big man. He knows how to get stuff done. We saw that at Alabama. C.J. Mosley, same exact thing. Also at Alabama, absolute great middle linebacker. Somebody that's an absolute ball hawk. Kind of plays like a free safety in the middle of the field. We saw it first week against the Bills.
Well, he's
absolute
a defensive quarterback also. So.
Exactly. He's one of the best at it to do it right now. He's exceptional. They got guys on this team that can do things on defense and win games by themselves. And now it's starting to pick up. Now they're on a snowball effect. I know last night was kind of discouraging for the Jets and Jets fans. But it is Tom Brady. Tom Brady will do that to you, especially a Tom Brady like we're seeing this year with a defense like he has. But as for the question, is the O-line holding Le'Veon back? If you look at his stats right now, it's hard to say no. But it's also hard to say if that is his O-line or is that just him lagging behind because of just his legs aren't fresh enough. We look at his stats right now and we can see he has 100 rush yards. Let me rephrase that. Let me start here. So Le'Veon Bell right now in week 1 had 17 rushes for 60 yards, right? So he had 3.53 yards per attempt, which is not too bad. If you're getting 3, that's enough to be a 3-down back. You know what I'm saying? So, but it looks like he's kind of improved the last couple games. Against Dallas, it was kind of the same thing with their first win, but against the New England Patriots, if you look at it, he really had a pretty good game. He had 15 rushes for 70 yards, and he's not getting a lot of yards. So it is kind of hard to say that that's him. It is kind of easy after you look at that to say maybe it is that O-line. It would be different if you looked at his yards per attempt, right, and saw that he wasn't getting as many as he should. But you're looking at how many yards he's able to get. It looks like his O-line, his tackles just aren't blocking as well as they should be. Just aren't good enough as they were in the Steelers for him.
Well, not only that, but the teams the Jets have played against, the opposing defenses, they haven't had to respect the Jets' passing game. I mean, probably every team, including the Patriots last night, are basically they're going to try to stop the Jets from running the football, force them into second, third, and long situations, and try to force them into obvious passing downs. And Darnold had a pretty good game against the Cowboys 2 weeks ago, and then had an equally terrible game against the Patriots. And of course, the games that he was out, I mean, you didn't even have to worry about the Jets quarterback situation. I mean, they just didn't have a quarterback in there that defense were even concerned about. So basically, I think their strategy was just to crowd the line and hold down Le'Veon Bell and try to force the Jets into throwing the football. And
so they did that pretty well. I mean, not scoring any points for the Jets.
I mean, if Darnold can come on and play good like he did against the Cowboys, and if they can stretch the field, that should open up more opportunities for Le'Veon Bell to make some yardage. So I don't think it's maybe really so much the offensive line, but it's hard to have a successful running game in NFL as it is, even if you do have a good passing attack. But if you can't throw the football, it's extremely difficult to have any success running it, because if teams don't have to respect you throwing the football, and they can put eight in the box, then that's what they're going to do. Because really, with Sam Darnold not playing well, Le'Veon Bell is the only guy that you really have to worry about as a playmaker on that offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, it just makes it easier to stop. I mean, if you have a team that's going to run the ball down your throat, it just makes it so much easier to stop that team every week. It's already easy to stop a team in the NFL with the kind of pro-style offense that everybody runs, obviously. And it's easy to look where people are going to throw that football and where to line up and where to put your guys in the flats or put them over the middle. And when you take away passing as a whole, I mean, like the Patriots did, just stuffing that interior when they drop back to pass, playing a nickel, A-gap kind of coverage where you have guys in that middle and putting extra linebackers on the field when you need them to stop that, off-tackle run. I mean, you literally close off your game to everyone and allow yourself to be beaten by everyone. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's really a question of, is his O-line kind of letting him down. I think his O-line could easily, be perfect for him. I think they could allow Le'Veon Bell to be one of the best rushers in this league right now. Just if they could get that passing game going, and I think they can. I think next week you're gonna see it more. They play the Vikings next week? Is that correct? No, they play the Jaguars next week. Okay, yeah. So playing at Jacksonville. You're playing an 8:15 game. That's a 1:00 game. So you're playing a regular game at Jacksonville. This is a time for you to start passing the ball and see if you can get any lanes open. Right now, I mean, what do you have to lose? It's this or nothing. You know what I'm saying? So Sam Darnold has to get out there and open some lanes up. Not only does he have to open some lanes up downfield behind the safeties and over their shoulders, but he has to open up lanes in the box. He has to open up lanes in the pocket and just have the ability to hand it off or hit Le'Veon Bell in the flat somehow, or just get him involved and get the O-line some rewards for doing what they're doing. Obviously their pass block isn't as well as what their run blocking could be. So hand the ball off to Le'Veon Bell some more once you get those lanes open, and that's really all I can say. That's should be their whole plan next week, is just trying to get those passing lanes open and see what they can do through the air. So, yeah. I think now you kind of reach the 30-minute mark, so we need to we'll transition to college football for a little bit. We might get back in the NFL in a second, but there's just a lot of things in college football that I want to talk about too. I want to save it kind of towards the end though, just because of what has aspired, in the last couple days here. But one thing I wanted to bring up is all right. So Alabama and LSU, that game's coming up soon. And what we could see here is a game of the century. And I'm talking about a game that was bigger than the game back in 2008, I think that game was.
2011.
2011. Okay, a game that was bigger than the game in 2011. This could be the game. This could literally be the game of the decade, the game of the century. A 1 Alabama team and a 2 LSU team going at it. Really for the SEC when they're not even in the SEC championship yet. So this is going to be interesting, and it wouldn't be this interesting until now. Tua last week or this past week when he was playing Tennessee suffered a high ankle sprain, and recently after the game there was a kind of, everybody was saying 1 to 2 weeks, maybe even 3 time span of him getting back. Now what we're seeing is there is no recorded time span, so they've wiped everything off the board. Nick Saban has reported there is no length for when he's going to get back. He has no idea. Nobody there has any idea right now. We have a couple different situations that could happen to Tua Tagovailoa in the next couple days. Number one, the best situation for Alabama fans, the best situation for Alabama as a whole, best situation for him, is Tua is able to come back right before the LSU game. He gets healthy right at that bye week, and he's able to come back and play against LSU, or he's probably going to be at a 75% health. There's no way
he's not going to be 100%. If he plays for LSU, he's not going to be 100%. I would think probably somewhere in the 75-80% range is probably the best you could realistically hope for. I think you have to remember too, when he had the same injury to his other ankle last year, he had about 4 weeks that he was able to recover from the surgery and tried to rehab that before they played Oklahoma. He got injured against against Georgia. in the SEC championship and came back and played against Oklahoma and played well in that game. But even at point, Tua said he was probably only about 80% for that game. Another thing to recognize here as well, if he is able to come back and play for LSU, the injury that he had last year was on his left ankle, which is his plant foot when it comes to throwing the ball. And this time around is to his right ankle, so it's on his non-plant foot. So in that regard, is a bit better situation because he doesn't have to put the strength and the stress and the weight on the bad ankle when he's throwing the football. But at the same time, it is still going to limit his mobility, and it's going to be so important that if he's able to play against LSU, that the offensive line keeps him upright and limits the number of hits that he takes. He's just not going to be able to elude the rush as he would normally, and he's not going to be able to stand back there and hold to the football. He's going to have to get rid of it. He's going to have to limit the number of hits that he's going to take. And at LSU, that they're going to be coming after him. There's going to be a lot of blitzing, stunting. They're going to try to do everything they can to get to him and put him out of the game. So
it's going to affect Alabama, whether Tua plays or not. That's that number 2 option. That was the number 1 option that we're talking about. Tua is available at LSU, and he's 75%. Number 2, though, and we really don't know which one of these options are good, but keep in mind, option number 2 is that Tua, whether it's because of his parents keeping him out, and Nick Bosa type of situation, just doesn't wants to prepare for the draft, or he's not available, or he's just not going to play because they don't think it's a good time for him to play before they have to play Auburn. Mac Jones will have to lead Alabama against LSU. If this actually happens, if Mac Jones, which is the biggest percentage chance of what's going to happen at this point, if or when he plays LSU and has to lead Alabama's offense, almost every SEC fan is saying that's a LSU guaranteed win. I think Alabama next week when Alabama plays Arkansas, if they convincingly beat an Arkansas team right now that has shown to be a really, really bottom tier SEC team, if they show to beat Arkansas with some solid passing yards, with a solid amount of passing yards, and by a solid amount of points, I think Mac Jones will have no problem beating LSU. I seriously think that Alabama will roll past LSU, and there's a couple reasons why. I'm not going to straight up say that Mac Jones is 2. I'm not going to say that he can do it 100%. What I'm saying is Alabama has had their run game completely just expose itself and show up in the last 2 games against Texas A&M and Tennessee. These guys have completely just decided to show up, and these guys are playing football. Najee's hurdling over people, stiff-arming people. The tackles are opening up big lanes. The guards are pushing dudes about 40 yards downfield, allowing everybody to get where they need to go. Najee to hit the hole wherever he needs to be. Right now you are literally seeing an Alabama offense we saw it against Tennessee. They were going A.J. McCarron mode. They were literally hitting a 2011, 2012, 2010 type of Alabama offense. It was like nostalgia watching that offense. You were seeing guys run up the middle. You were seeing screen passes. You were seeing things over the middle. A lot of that. And if you can do that again, Alabama beat LSU multiple times with that kind of offense. Beat everybody like that multiple times with that kind of offense. The thing that's different this year is the defense, right? And so the defense this year, in my opinion, the defense has shown up later in the season. In these last 2 games, I think the defense has shown up. Not enough for me to say they'll convincingly beat LSU and convincingly hold Joe to where he needs to be the whole time. I will say the defense in the past 2 weeks has shown that they can get to Joe Burrow. And that's all they need to do. It's not like they need to play an absolute perfect game, stuffing the run or whatever, but they have to keep Joe Burrow from concisely getting these first downs one after the other, marching up the field, scoring instantly, and having Mac Jones get back on the field, because he's not that great in those lights. If you put Mac Jones up there, 9 out of 10 times he's going to make a mistake if he has to keep coming up there. So the game plan for me, when I'm watching this, is that Alabama has to get pressure, which they can do now. They have to get that pressure, and they can do that. They're going to have to play a lot of nickel defense because Joe Burrow likes to throw to the outside. He likes to throw to the corners, and the Alabama secondary has almost never been better this year. Alabama's secondary this year is near perfect.
Yeah, the secondary hasn't been the issue. It's been the front seven. But, on the defense, there have been some positive signs in the last couple of weeks. The front seven has done a better job of putting pressure and getting to the quarterback. So that's a positive sign. Early in the season, that was a big issue. We saw quarterbacks being able to stand back there and take plenty of time in the pocket to find receivers. You can't do that, especially against an offense like LSU, which, Burrow is not going to stand back there a long time holding to the football. He's going to get back there, make his quick reads, and get rid of the football. There's not a lot of deep throws downfield. So, yeah, they're going to have to definitely be able to put pressure and get to Burrow, because he's not going to stand back there and hold the ball for a long time. It's not a deep passing offense. It's basically get the ball, make your quick read, and get rid of it. But yeah. Yeah, the secondary of Alabama has not been an issue. They've done pretty well, and you look at their corners. Alabama's corners are about as good as anybody else in college football. Like I said, it's the front seven, and by the time they play LSU, they're going to have 8 games of experience under the belt. I'm talking about like those freshman linebackers. Terrell Lewis is really coming on. Everybody knew how good he was, but with the injuries he's had the last couple of years, he kind of has had to play him way back into shape to get to a point to be the kind of player he was pre-injury. And I think he's been really disruptive the last couple of weeks, so that is a really good sign for Alabama. They will have to have him and have him play well if they're going to beat LSU. And a couple other things that are also going to be in Alabama's favor. Number one, if Mac Jones does have to play against LSU, he will have the benefit of having a whole game under his belt before he does so. And then an extra week off to prepare. That means extra reps in practice, being the number one quarterback. A whole game of experience under his belt. So that's got to help him. Of course, that will cause Alabama's offense to be altered a little bit and go back to the kind of Alabama offense you saw earlier in Saban's tenure.
Yeah, like I just said, that A.J. McCarron style.
It's going to be. It will be more of a controlled passing game, more of a power running game featured, and you'll see more shorter passing game. It means getting the ball to the running backs out in space, and you'll certainly see this. You'll still see the slants. You'll see some quick throws out to the receivers. So it'll be more of that kind of passing game. So that will be one benefit, and also too, another thing that's going to probably work in Alabama's favor somewhat. Alabama, they get the 2 weeks before they play LSU. We're going to be playing Arkansas. That is a game that it's not going to be a physical football game. Not the way Arkansas plays. Alabama should be able to get on top, get control of that game early, and play a lot of backups. So health-wise for Alabama going to LSU, that will be helpful, because on the opposite side, LSU has got to play Auburn this week. Auburn may be the most physical team in the SEC.
Of course.
So you look at a team, particularly LSU, which has had issues with players being injured on the defensive side of the ball, going against a physical team like that. You know, you don't know if any of LSU players might get hurt, or how badly injured some of the players might get hit up. But playing a brutal physical team like that will certainly have its lingering effects, and that is something that could possibly play in Alabama's favor when those two teams meet.
Yeah, Auburn's going to make, pretty boy Joe Burrow hurt a little bit. I mean, he's played a defense. He's played Florida. Florida's got a defense. Obviously, we saw that it was better than Auburn's in a sense. I think Auburn has a better front four than Florida does. I think Florida played a better secondary and probably linebacker game. But I think, when it comes down to brutal, physicality, it's on Auburn's favor. They have a better front four. And Derek Brown, one of the most aggressive, physical, athletic D linemen we've seen in SEC recent history. I mean, this guy is an absolute baller. So he's going to hit Joe Burrow in the mouth a couple times. These guys are going to get hit. This could be cause for running back injuries, God forbid quarterback injuries, O-lineman injuries. They're not going to be in good shape when they play Alabama. And with or without Tua, that's going to hurt. At the same time, though, I do think LSU convincingly wins this game. I think it's going to be LSU, or I'm talking about the Auburn game, by the way. I think LSU is able to convincingly put up more points than Auburn can. I think that Auburn's going to make them struggle a little bit in that passing game or in that running game, and I think it's going to force Joe Burrow to pass downfield, but he's going to be able to do it. He's a field general. He's an absolute game manager, knows how to hit guys over their shoulder, knows how to open up those deep one-on-ones, and knows, where safeties are and where these one-on-one matchups that are, mismatches are going to be. And I think he's going to be able to, pull that off and get just an excessive amount of yards against Auburn through the air, and they're probably going to come out with that W. So, regardless, like you just said, it's a physical team that they're playing. They're not going to get out of that, all happy like they were against Florida or, the game before. They're not going to get out of that all smiling and giggles. They know they get out of that game and they have to play Auburn, or they have to play Alabama, right after that. So, that's a good situation for Alabama, bad situation for LSU. But, in LSU's favor, Tua might not be available. That's going to be, honestly, my game of the century. I seriously think that game's going to be better than any game we've seen in, a long, long time. This season of college football is crazy. I mean, this is literally one of the craziest seasons we've ever had. I mean, this is insane. You got SEC teams that can do anything. You got Alabama, LSU, Florida, and Auburn. And LSU, Florida, and Auburn have almost been irrelevant in terms of national championships for so long. LSU's been the closest. And now when you have Florida coming back, with one of the best defenses in the country, and Kyle Trask being able to actually be a good quarterback, a great leader for his team. Man, I mean, we're really looking at a good SEC just team deathmatch here. I mean, this is going to be crazy what we're going to see out of Alabama, LSU. I guess. Yeah,
it's no telling how the rest of the season's going to play out, because if you look at all the top teams in the conference, all the teams have tough games remaining on the schedule. So I mean, almost anything can happen. Alabama has LSU. They still got to finish the season at Auburn. You look at Auburn, they're playing LSU this week. They've still got home games at the end of the season against Georgia and Alabama. Of course, Georgia's got Florida coming up in a couple of weeks. They got to play each other. And, of course, Georgia still has to play Auburn. And Florida has the easiest remaining schedule of the bunch. Like I said, they play Georgia in a couple of weeks. But after that, I think they have Missouri on their schedule. I think they have Vandy. And I believe that's it. But, yeah. But all these teams are literally going to be playing one another, so anything can happen.
Definitely. I mean, it's insane what we're seeing this year. And like I said earlier, with Florida, I want to touch on Florida a little bit. So Um, right now, when we look at Kyle Trask, like I was just talking about him, so on Instagram, very popular football reporter, Elite College Football, made a post comparing Kyle Trask to Trevor Lawrence and Jake Fromm. With Kyle Trask, his stats are 1,391 yards, 67.5 percentage, 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions with 5 starts. Trevor has 1,500 yards, 63.7 percentage, 14 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 7 starts. Jake Fromm has 1,400 yards, 70.7% rating, and a 9 touchdown and 3 interception record with 7 starts. So compared to all of them, Kyle Trask is up there in that quarterback, conversation. With 5 starts, 4 interceptions is a lot, but for somebody that just starting. What do you think about that? You think this guy's for real? Do you think Florida has it? We've all been saying, we've said it a million times. Right now, Florida's in control of their own destiny. This guy doesn't look like he's going to mess anything up for him, right? He's going to take him as far as he can.
No, he seems to continue to get better. I think you still worry about him a little bit with his decision making. He does seem to throw the ball in some tight windows. He does have 4 picks, which is not terrible. It's not that bad, but he does seem to make some dangerous passes occasionally. So you do have to worry about that. And again, this is a guy who essentially is starting for the first time since early in his high school career. When he started against Auburn, that was his first start in any football game in like 7 years. So,
which is really
he's basically still learning. He's getting comfortable playing position. He's got a couple weeks to get ready for Georgia. So, I think the biggest thing for Florida is trying to develop a better and more consistent running game. That's been their problem. Florida just doesn't have a great offensive line. Passing wise, they're fine. Trask has done pretty well. He's got a couple of good receivers to get the ball to. Kyle Pitts has been pretty good catching balls tight end. They're expecting to have Kadarius Toney back, which is their biggest playmaker on offense. They expect him to be back and ready to play against Georgia. So offensively, I think passing the ball they're fine. I think they want to have more balance though and do a better job running the football. So it remains to be seen if they're going to be able to do that or not.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of any rushing yards they get, really they're trying to open up lanes, not with running the football like a traditional SEC team or like a traditional pro-style team, but putting in Emory Jones out there to kind of open up some lanes. If you don't keep up with Florida football, Emory Jones is their backup quarterback, if you can even call him a backup at this point, because he goes into the game so often now in their scheme, and it kind of works. It kind of worked against LSU a couple times. They did open up some schemes, but they can still do that and implement a running game, because what they're missing right now is just a running game that gets lanes open downfield and also through the middle. They like to get some, kind of stacking the box motion. Like SEC teams like to get that stack in the box motion, but Florida never really is able to lure the box together with that team. They know they're not going to be able to get any inside runs. Everything they get is usually off tackle. We saw that with LaMichael Perron's huge off tackle run a couple games ago. There's just a lot of things that they need to do differently in that rushing attack to open up some more lanes and just get some more, I guess, just better reads for Kyle Trask to make, because not starting like this all the time, you're just not going to make the best reads ever. But if you can make those reads easier by opening up a running game, getting more space downfield, and also another thing too that it's overlooked when you open up a running game is that the defense gets slower, because these guys, especially in man coverage, they don't know, and especially in the RPO game, they don't know if you're going to run or pass. They're trying to decipher that. With Florida, you can lean more towards the passing option when you see the O-line adjusted a certain way, or you don't see Emory Jones out there. You really can lean more towards the passing option, and I'm going to sink back into coverage, or I'm going to move outside the box and try to cover these guys in the flats or in the deep middle. Which is why they probably couldn't beat LSU. That's a big reason why they couldn't beat LSU, because LSU started to get wary of what they were going to do on offense. They didn't have enough plays drawn up, mainly because they just didn't have enough of a rushing attack. They couldn't get through the middle and have any of those big off tackle runs anymore. Kyle Trask can do it all. He can do everything they need, but they have to get that rushing game if they want to be they're in control of their own destiny, but if they want to take advantage of it, they got to get that open.
I think too on Florida's offense, I think Emory Jones is going to continue to be a bigger and bigger part of that offense and more important to them, particularly if they're not able to establish any more of a running game than what they have so far. They can bring him in. He can wildcat. You may even start seeing offensive sets where both Emory Jones and Kyle Trask are both in the game at the same time. So I think that they'll probably try to bring Jones in as a change of pace, get him some snaps where he can run the ball, maybe get the ball in his hands in space. He's an excellent athlete. He can certainly do some things with the ball if you can get him out where he's got a chance to run and do something with it. So, you saw him doing a little bit of that here the last couple of games. I think his role is probably going to continue to expand in that offense.
Mm-hmm. I would say the same exact thing, and just because of what I saw when they played LSU, that's what worked for them. That's what gave them a lot of yards in the middle of the field and outside the field, wherever. That's what gave them yards. That's what gave them an offense. Only reason they were able to slow that down, LSU was able to slow that down, is because that's the only thing they were running. That's the only way they were making any big plays. But like I said, open up a running game, everything clicks. Everything will be able to click for you. Florida will be able to make it as far as they want to if they can do that. Other than that, I'm loving Florida this year. I had them as my dark horse SEC candidate, the early this year, and when all that was happening with Felipe Franks, they slowly got out of my head. I did not picture this type of Florida bouncing back from a Felipe Franks injury. So I'm very happy that this is what the SEC is looking like, because we started out the season and SEC was looking like a joke. I mean, the only two teams that were looking any decent were Alabama and LSU, and Alabama was looking kind of weak, and LSU was looking, weaker. And then as they both progressed, got into the offense, I mean, now we're seeing Alabama balling out completely, LSU just playing like a pro type of team. Florida's bouncing back and saying, no, I'm here to stay, and Auburn's one of the hottest, most talked about teams in the country this year, just with that, quarterback Bo Nix and Derek Brown being at that DP position, probably going to be the first defensive player picked in the draft this year, or next year, I should say. So, yeah, it's heating up in the SEC for all these teams. It's looking good. Overall, I'm very excited to see the next couple matchups in the SEC, but especially that game of the century, game of the decade, whatever you want to call it. That's going to be fun to look at. It sucks that game is kind of at like 2:30. I think it's 2:30 Central Time.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that would be a night game. I think that's the kind of thing you would definitely want in prime time. It would bring a bigger TV audience. I think it would really have a great atmosphere having it at night. Kind of really surprised that CBS didn't make a move to try and make it happen where that game was at night, because in the last several years, more often than not, CBS has the rights to have to do a couple of night telecasts on Saturday evenings, and usually one of those has been the Alabama LSU game. So really surprised that they chose not to do that this year. But in any case, it's going to be a great atmosphere for that game. It was reported back in 2011 when they met that year, game of the century. 1 versus 2. Of course, Alabama Stadium holds a little over 100,000, and it was estimated there were probably well over 200,000 people on campus that day for that game. People who didn't even have a ticket to the game but just wanted to be part of the atmosphere surrounding it. I'm not sure if you'll have quite that kind of a turnout, but I would suspect you'll probably have at least something in the same neighborhood. It should be quite a scene.
So no question that College Game Day is going to be at Tuscaloosa.
Oh, there's no question. But if LSU beats Auburn, because Alabama should beat Arkansas, I don't really think there's a lot of doubt about that. But if LSU wins that game and they both are undefeated going into that matchup, there's no doubt LSU. That game day will be there.
Yeah, I'm just very excited for that. I think also one thing if you're an Alabama fan, I think one thing that really can hype them up is maybe you should be thankful this isn't a night game when you have Mac Jones playing. When you have a quarterback like that hasn't started, and he's playing in a game against LSU at nighttime. I know it's in his own stadium, but he's playing at nighttime under the big lights, the brand new lights, and that kind of atmosphere. Compared to playing, on a college campus at 2 o'clock, in the afternoon, I think I would opt for that 2 o'clock option if I was in his shoes. If I was Tua, obviously I'd want to play at, midnight with the brightest lights playing, with the loudest music. If I'm Tua, that's what I'm going to want. I'm going to ball out and throw for 500 yards that night. But I think Mac, he's probably going to want that softer kind of vibe, that more of a daytime like battle type of vibe, and I think that's going to help him out a little bit. So it's another reason why I think like Mac Jones is just very overlooked right now. I think a lot of people are counting on LSU to win that game just because of Tua's injury. Yeah. But that's going to help Mac Jones. I'm just saying. I mean, that is something quarterbacks just do. They command that offense. So whatever type of vibe that they're in is whatever type of direction that game is going.
It probably will. That probably will help Mac Jones not having to wait all the way until late at night to play.
Especially if he balls out against Arkansas
at
nighttime. Then he's going to really have confidence.
And another thing that's going to help Alabama too is, and Saban is, his thing is when he has a player such as this, whether it be a quarterback or another player of great importance to the team's success, he's not going to tell you if he's going to play or not. It is probably likely that we're not going to even know if Tua is going to play against LSU until the offense actually runs out onto the field for the first time.
Yeah.
So
that's actually probably pretty great. I mean,
that means LSU's got to prepare for 2 different quarterbacks and probably possibly two different styles of offense.
I think that's why now all of a sudden in Nick Saban's press conference today, he said he has no idea when Tua is going to be there. He says nobody knows.
Yeah, because Saban there's no way he's going to make any kind of announcement before Alabama plays LSU. He may give stats reports. He may say, how Tua is progressing, but he's not come out and say at all if Tua is actually going to play in the game or not.
Yeah.
Likely, if he says anything, he'll probably is going to say it's a game time decision. So,
I mean, he said today that there's no time frame, so that could be, mind games. I mean, that could be that could be all part of the plan. LSU has no idea what to prep for, and it really is. You look at it kind of outside the box. It doesn't look, it's not a big deal. I mean, LSU is gonna have to prep for Alabama offense regardless. Well, if Tua is there, you're gonna have to prep for Tua type thing. You're gonna have to prep for big shots downfield with all these receivers healthy. And swing routes out in the back and running the football, Tua running the football. You're gonna have to prep for all these things: out routes, corner routes, deep routes, go routes, whatever it may be. You're gonna have to prep for all of that. Mac Jones, what are you gonna have to prep for? Inside routes, slants, inside handoffs, off tackle runs, some scrambling here and there. If you're LSU, exactly, if you're LSU, like it's a whole different offense. You're gonna either have to prep for 2019 or you're gonna have to prep for 2011. They have no idea what they're gonna have to prep for, and I think that's actually a good point. I didn't really think about that till now, but that's probably the reason why Nick Saban brought that up today in that press conference. He said there's no timeline. After the other day, after the game, he said it was 1 to 3 weeks. Now there's no timeline with air quotes. So. Yeah. So yeah, if you're an SEC fan, that's going to be the game. That is literally the game of the century. Um, so yeah, I think that's probably all I wanted to say because I knew there was big narratives this week. I wanted to start talking about those narratives instead of just bringing up, just random scores and things like that because that's where the juice lies. That's where the action lies. That's what we want to hear, and that's where the analysis lies, and in the analyzing of different stats and ideas. That's where it all lies in these big narratives. And this was a huge narrative. This is a big narrative for the SEC, and it might go overlooked if you're not a fan of the SEC. So look at this one because this game is going to be the game of the decade for sure. Might be the game of the century. It's going to be amazing. I really just wanted to talk about that, and we talked about it for like half of our time, but rightfully so because it's going to be absolutely insane. Bless you, by the way.
Thank
So,
you.
if that is I guess like for me that's pretty much it because that's really the most I wanted to talk about, the most I really had in my mind, just to kind of go over, and I really poured my heart out on that because that's literally the only thing I'm waiting for right now. It's going to be my whole season right there watching it. So I mean, yeah. If you guys in chat have any questions or anything you want us to answer before we go ahead and go here, go ahead and let us know. We're looking at all the chats. We're looking at the DMs and things like that. So we're checking all of it. Do you have anything you want to mention?
Just want to say, this upcoming weekend, not a huge weekend as far as big time games. There are a couple of games to make note of. And of course, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have the first college football playoff poll come out. So we got that, looming on the horizon. I think that will actually come out the day after Alabama and LSU play, or that weekend of games. But talking about the playoff coming up, and the first polls coming out for it, you got a couple of games here that's going to have something to say in determining who is going to be in the top four of that first poll, or somewhere near the top four. You do have Wisconsin playing at Ohio State, which would have been a huge game this week had Wisconsin not come out and lost to Illinois. I'm still not sure how that happened. Illinois being one of the worst teams in the FBS, but somehow Wisconsin came out. I'm not sure if they were looking ahead, or just didn't play well, or just took the game too lightly. But in any case, they end up losing that game on a last-second field goal. But in any case, Wisconsin still ranked 13th. They're playing at Ohio State. Everybody really expects Ohio State to win that game. I think overall right now, they've been the most consistent, most complete team in the country. A lot of people would view them as the number one team. I can't really argue against that necessarily. I expect Ohio State to win. I think that would be a good game. But that's certainly a game that's going to bear watching. Of course, we've already talked a bit about Auburn and LSU. That's the other big game. Auburn at ranked number 9, LSU number 2. And if by chance somehow Auburn is able to go in there and pull the upset and win that game, that is going to change a lot of things. It's certainly going to change the meaning of the Alabama-LSU matchup when that comes up. And then all of a sudden, if that's the case, if LSU loses to Auburn, Alabama beats LSU, then all of a sudden the Iron Bowl game is the game that's going to determine who goes to play for the SEC championship and has the upper hand as far as the college football playoff rankings go. So, but those are going to be two games to really keep an eye on. There are some other good games out there. Of course, you got Notre Dame playing at Michigan. Two teams that probably overall are probably not going to, certainly not Michigan, figure into the college football playoff scenario. I mean, Notre Dame possibly could. They are ranked number 8. They've only lost one game. Beating Michigan would certainly help the resume. But being an independent and playing, and seeing how you still have several undefeated teams ahead of them in the polls, still not sure, even if they were to win out, how much of a factor they would be in trying to get into the Final Four. But that's certainly a game to keep an eye on as well. There's some other good ones, but those are the games that involve the ranked teams. Those are the ranked matchups. So those are the ones that are probably going to have the most importance this weekend.
Yep. That LSU Auburn obviously going to be a huge one. Like we said earlier, physical team, going to get to them. Going to be a good matchup to watch. Probably the best one. I don't know where game day is going this weekend. I forgot.
Game day is going to be at
Is it South Dakota?
South Dakota State, I believe.
Yeah, they chose that over LSU and Auburn, I believe, right? Did we talk about that last Tuesday?
Well, they chose that. They could have went to LSU and Auburn. And probably if Wisconsin had won this past weekend, they would probably have been in Columbus for Wisconsin and Ohio State, because that would have been two top 10 teams, both undefeated, playing. That's probably where they would have been. Wisconsin losing that game took some luster off of that. And considering the fact that that game is going to be a Fox game, and then you got Auburn and LSU, which is a CBS game, sometimes game day, when you don't have a surefire, obvious number one game sitting out there, sometimes they like to go off the grid and pick places to go to that maybe they haven't been before, that where there'd be a lot of excitement for them to go to. So and I think this is going to be a big game on the FCS level, so I think that played a lot to why they picked it.
Well, it's always great to get those lower schools noticed, because football can get kind of boring when we only cover the same 6 to 8 teams. So it's good that those schools get recognition, and things like that. We have all kinds of schools that don't get recognition for the way they play. I know, like we talked about Tulane a couple weeks ago. I mean, they were playing, really good. They were a fun team to watch. I mean, now they're kind of slipping downhill, and you got teams like UAB that are, playing, and you got a lot of teams that are just lesser level teams that don't really have a chance to compete against these big dudes and aren't talked about as much. So, it's good game days going there and kind of shopping around a little bit.
Yeah, in the last few years, they have made a point to try to go to some places they'd never been before, because you can only go to to Gainesville or Tuscaloosa or Baton Rouge or Austin, Ann Arbor. You can only go to those places so many times, and I think they try to keep the show kind of fresh and keep the excitement and the interest level up. I think it does well for them to try to go to different places. I know several years ago they went to a game, I believe it's in Fargo, where North Dakota State is. They went there several years ago. And the last year they did a game in Pullman, Washington, where Washington State is. Of course, in Washington State, so whoever it is, they always make a point to have their flag at game day.
Oh, yeah,
they always make a point to reference that. They've been there like 240 or 50 something times in a row.
Consecutively, yeah.
Yeah, consecutively. So they finally made a trip to Pullman this past year, and there's been some other places that they have they made first trips to here in the last few years. So, but I think it's good. I think it's good that they do that instead of going to the same places and covering the same games year after year. They try to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing, like I said, and everybody watches game day. Everybody that watches college football makes a point to watch a little bit of game day in the morning. So it's gonna bring some knowledge and stuff and different things. You're gonna see a different fan base there. So that's pretty cool, and obviously you're getting the same kind of content you get if they went anywhere else. So it is kind of cool for them to go to places like that, and I'm excited to watch on Saturday. It's gonna be fun. I sadly won't be able to watch a lot of football on Saturday, but besides the Alabama game and a couple of night games, but I know you guys will. Everybody watching here, and you will. So yeah, Saturday's gonna be great. Saturday's gonna be a good day in college football. So yeah, well, I guess that's pretty much it for us tonight. It's about 8:15 on Tuesday, so yeah, if you guys are watching, I don't know how many people left are still watching, but we had a good night tonight. You know, a lot of you guys in chat, a lot of you guys paying attention, asking questions, things like that. We appreciate that. Appreciate you guys coming along. Make sure you turn notifications on. You subscribe. You like our videos, and just share them around, because we really want to just build a community of you guys that like talking about football, that want to talk about it more. And we want to also, grow our social media. We haven't been doing a great job with that lately, but we want to do that soon. We want to start growing our social media and building our presence more on the internet bigger. And we're going to get on that soon. We were supposed to a couple weeks ago. It didn't really work out that well with the person that we had running the media, but soon it's going to be different, and we will have you guys right there with us on social media and on Twitter, and live tweeting and things like that, and posting on Instagram and giving updates and things like that, and try to just build this community, and that's why we want you guys to share it. We want to get it as big as possible, as fast as possible. We'll really start to pick up next season of football, I think, is when we'll have our big moment. And so we're looking forward to that. We're all excited about that. And yeah, so tonight was a good night. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. If you have anything else to say.
No, I'm good.
All right, then we'll see you guys next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll cover all the games that happened this past weekend and all the games that will happen next weekend. All right, thank you guys for sticking around. See you.